Hello, I'm Rick Stivers of YoungMartin'sReels. Today we are looking at a pair of D.A.M Quick Super 270 reels, and this one actually has a unique feature. It has a line counter on it. This one I bought after I was given this reel, and I was given this one because it was deemed to be not a feasible repair. And I, in my wishful thinking, really started hoping I could possibly fix it. But this reel, it could be fixed, but the expense of the parts, because they're so rare, is just either expense or too much effort. I contemplated doing some things and just I've decided not to. So it's becoming a parts reel. Let me show you what's wrong with it. First off, we can bring the bail back like so. All right. And when we do, it never returns. All right. Now, why doesn't it return is the question. If we open it up and look inside here, this lever right here is our trip release lever. All right. And what I'm going to show you is that this lever, use an appropriate size screwdriver. This lever has the, let's go ahead and release it manually. And we can take it out of here. And if you look, okay, this lever is supposed to have a 90-degree angle that turns right here and comes down about this far. All right, and that lever is supposed to trip off of a post in here, and that will pull it back and get it out of the bail, releasing the bail. Well, I assumed that this part was made out of steel because it really looks steel even in this light. And what I have found out is no, it's not made of steel, it's made of bronze. And I can't weld bronze. I thought about trying to cast a new one, and I started looking at all that. So I thought, went looking for one. I wasn't able to find one. And I started contemplating the other things that are wrong with the reel. And I said, you know what? Not at this time. Let's take a look at the rest of what's wrong with this reel. Okay, the next thing is right here. This is our anti-reverse. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Depending on how it manages to get itself set over here. And the reason that it's sometimes working and sometimes not, I will show you. Someone has tried to repair that by cutting deeper into this assembly right here. And when they did that, of course, they uglied it up quite a bit. They miscut the notch. They got way outside of the notch and cut a big gouge. And what's happening is that that pin, see that little parent pin right there? It's just barely able to catch. See, no more than it's doing. It's just barely able to catch. And by doing so, what it's doing, I'm going to go ahead and drive this pin out real quick. Almost far enough. There we go. Pin's out. If you look at the back side of this, see how chewed up all the holes are that pin's supposed to go into? all those lips that it's supposed to catch on, it's just worn and gouged them out. So it needs a new main gear for the anti-reverse. It needs that trip lever. It needs this pin here, which is actually chipped, which is difficult to do since it's a steel pin catching in bronze. You would think it would be difficult. On top of that, well, let's go ahead and get this handle out of the way. This ball handle right here has been bent, not to mention the fact that they left the edges of this jagged when they ground it down right here and missed over here. So you can see where it took a grinder to this, but they left it jagged. Well, when they did that, it's been eating into the sides of the pin, grinding it away. Plus the pin is bent. So it needs a new ball pin. It needs this pin because the tip is chipped off. It needs this piece because somebody ground the snot out of it. You put all that together and that tells me I have a parts reel here. Okay, there's a lot of really good parts left in this reel, but those parts over there in that pile are pretty much all bad except this screw, this pin, and that spring. All the rest of those parts need to be replaced. So, that being the case, this has become a parts reel. Will I use any parts out of it today? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But we are going to make this reel, this super, fully functional, and I'm going to put it back out there for sale. I bought this just because I wanted to see how this line counter worked. To me, the concept of a line counter on a spinning reel was just ridiculous. How could you do such a thing? And basically what I have come to the conclusion, and I may change my conclusion as I take this apart and look at it, but I've come to the conclusion so far that it doesn't count how far out you cast, it counts how far you wind in. So it gives you a distance that way. But that's about the only thing that that line counter, in my opinion, can do for you. So, in the meantime, also, things that are wrong with this reel. The anti-reverse seems to work okay. Okay. Let's turn it the other way for the way it's set up to wind. Okay, anti-reverse is working. The bail trips because the trip release lever is good, but when it trips, it takes it forever to come all the way over. So we're going to take that apart and clean it. Chris, you may tell me not to take that bail spring apart, but I think it's going to need it on this one. It's a bit dirty. All right, we're going to take that off. We're going to take the spool off. And now we can look down inside here and see how this is supposed to be. I'm going to go ahead and take that off so you can see what a properly made trip lever is supposed to look like. There's that 90-degree angle that's supposed to be on the other one. It's not. Okay, that's supposed to trip inside here. As this rotates around, you should be able to see there's a lever inside there, and it's hitting that lever, and it's supposed to trip. Okay, we're going to see that more clearly in a minute when we take this apart. This one actually appears to be different from that one, so we're going to take a look at that when we take it apart. Maybe we'll want that part on this one. Let's continue on. Let's go ahead and remove the crank handle and anti-reverse assembly off of here. Well, that's interesting. This gear fits much closer up against this assembly than this one did. And there's the reason right there. Okay, now we see what happened to the anti-reverse. See this pin, this sleeve right here? That sleeve has slid down inside. Oh, by the way, there's a spring in here. Let me take that out. That's what happened to this reel. That's what started all this, is that bushing is pushed too far down. And I believe that could probably be pressed right back into position. And with that in position, this anti-reverse may start working properly even with that chewed up, but I doubt it. But it's still going to be a parts reel. Although I'm more inclined to find just the trip lever I need. Okay, side cover comes off. Okay. Now, this is definitely different inside than that one. Let me take that one apart on the inside and show you what this part looks like. All right, now you can see that this one has the line counter assembly and this one doesn't. Aside from that, though, all of the rest of the components in here appear to be the same. So the line counter, all the parts in here should interchange with each other. So this should be a good parts reel for this one. Let's see if this has that sleeve right there. It does. Okay. Well, these parts appear to be completely interchangeable. So let's go ahead at this point and take this screw out. Move the parts reel back over here. Okay, now the axle shaft should pull out. Should. Okay, because it's looking at some resistance there. Let's go ahead, tighten this down on here and see if we can use it to pull that axle shaft out of the crosswind block. There we go. Nope, still didn't come out. It's coming. There we go. All right, just old grease. I'm going to have to clean that up a little bit. Let's go ahead and take this back off of here. Back off. There's our axle shaft. Here is our crosswind block. Here is our crosswind gear. Now, notice right here, there's a very small shim washer. I noticed it in the other one. Don't lose that. Make sure you keep track of that. This part right here is what makes this reel more valuable than other Super 270s. I'm going to take a chance on it by taking it apart and cleaning it up, just so that it looks really nice. It's got a nice window in it. And like I said, it only counts the wind in. It doesn't count winding out. Okay, there's our counter. Wow, the numbers on that are in really good shape, but it all really needs to be cleaned in the worst kind of way. See if the window in here, it'll just pop out, and it does, which will make it easier to clean. Okay, Chris, there's how our counter works. It's just a wheel, and you can thumb wheel it to preset it where you want it, and then from then on, as this gear turns, it rotates and operates. Pretty sweet. This one here will come off. That'll make it easier to clean, and I'm not going to take any of the rest of that apart from there. I think we'll spray it down and scrub it just as it sits there. Okay, now I'm going to come over here. We're going to take, not with that, we're not. We're going to take this free and screw it over here. Anybody who's really excited about this reel, by all means, I think Chris gets first dibs on it though. And what I really want for it is what I paid for it originally. And okay, so this is a different setup from what's in this one. Let me show you the difference between the two. I think I like the older setup better. Yeah, slide that one off. Okay, so that's off on both of them. That one's in excellent condition. All right, see the difference in the way these two are made? And somewhere along the way, they changed from this design, this is the older design, to this design, which is the newer design. And I was thinking this was all rusted in here, but it's not. It's just old grease packed in there. I think we're going to stay with this design. I'm not going to move this part over to this one. I'm going to leave it in here. So let's go ahead and take this on apart. Pull this. All right, there we have it. Now this should pull out. Now I'll tell you what I had to do on this one. Is I took a board like this, and I wrapped it this way against the edge of the board, and that drove the bearing out like that. Okay, and that's what we did on this one as well. Okay, so that's got all of that disconnected and taken apart, except for that bushing. I'm going to leave that on there. I'm not going to take the foot off, although it does look as though the foot can be removed. I think we are ready to spray these parts. Now, I'm going to tell you now that we are still going to take that bail apart because the bail doesn't function properly. Wipe this grease off of this as well. All right. And now we're going to spray all these parts. I'm going to come back in a minute and things should be much cleaner. All right, well, for you it's just a few seconds. For me, it's been almost 2 hours of scrubbing and cleaning. And just to give you an idea, this little line counter assembly right here, this is the dirt and grease right here that came out of it. Okay, so it has taken a while to get to this point. With everything cleaned up now, it's time to get on with trying to get this thing cleaned up the rest of the way and reassembled. We're going to start off by putting the line counter back in, I think. That's going to, let's see. Here's our assembly, and this was the counter that went on at the indicator wheel. That slides on like so. And that allows you to manually set this wherever you need to without turning all the wheels. But once it's done setting, then as the wheel turns, it counts. All right. Now it has a little plastic window which was right here until I wiped this table off a minute ago. Well, I don't know if you guys spotted it while I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but here it sits right here. All right. That little window, and I've cleaned that up as best it will. I'm afraid of breaking it. It's already got a chip in it, and I don't want to break it. So the rest of what's on there is going to stay. It's much cleaner than it was when I started. So we're going to set that in place right there, like so. And then this assembly is going to sit in like this. And the wheel slides through a slot in the body right there. Like so. And once everything is in place, one long screw should go down through here to hold it in place. I think I over-tightened it. I think it's still tighter than it should be. Okay, there's our counter wheel. Wow, you can see it much clearer now than you could when I first started. So we'll set it to 0. Okay. And fortunately, it's engineered that if you overshoot, you don't have to go all the way around again. You can just put it back. Okay, I spent some time cleaning this bearing, and it's pretty much silent now. So I was going to grease it, but I normally oil my bearings, and it was very dirty and very noisy at first, and because it no longer is, I decided that I'm going to be satisfied with oiling. I cleaned it real good with WD-40 and acetone to get all the dirt and grime out of it until it quit hiccuping. There we go. All right, we're going to slide that in like so. Just about time we get right here, we want to come back and we want to put some grease on there because that's going to be sliding in that bushing. The front one is going to be sliding on the bearing, but this part right here is going to ride inside this bushing right here. So let's go ahead and rotate it around, put a little bit on the other side of it, like so, and slide it on in, like so. All right, and that smooth as glass. All right, now we're going to put our trip mechanism back on. That's going to sit right here. Now, I had a heck of a time when I took the parts reel apart. I had a bit of a time trying to get these screws back in. I much prefer in this situation that they use Phillips screws instead of flathead screws, but that's not what these folks did. So, just makes it a little more difficult to get them started. The screw would much rather stick to my hand than stick in the hole. All right, and as I've said in the past, grease makes a really good glue for holding screws like this. There we go. Don't get any of them all the way in until you have all 3 of them started. All right, there we go. Now we are ready to put our crosswind block, our gear back in. We are going to put a little grease here. A little bit right here on the base where that's going to ride on that bushing down there. But then we want to grease up the teeth of the gear. Now, not only is this gear going to be driving the axle shaft, it's also going to drive the line counter. So when this goes in here like so, it it's got to mesh with the line counter. And then as this rotates, it's moving the line counter. And we're going to come back now, put some grease on the gears of the line counter. Because I feel that it should be lubricated. And it was packed. They had actually packed it with grease. And I don't think it needs that much grease. Just enough to keep it well lubricated. All right, take that out. Now we're ready to put our rotor back on. And as I put the rotor on, if you look, see this metal plate right here? This metal plate has got to line up. Let me clean this up a little bit. I missed cleaning it before. All right. When this goes on, see the two flats on here? Well, they have to line up with the two flats in that collar, and then this keyway has to go onto that little square stud right there. All right? So we're going to pause for a moment. I think I've just discovered damage in this. Yes, there is. It appears that there has been a drop of this reel. And what I see is that this balance weight in this reel is broken. And it's going to need to come out and be replaced with one out of the other one. Let me find an appropriate screwdriver. I really don't want to use this rotor because the paint's all chewed up on it. This one's got beautiful paint. So I want to keep this rotor. But if you look, our weight assembly here is cracked. So I've got to see if I can get that out. I may not be able to. I may have to go with the not so good paint one. We're going to use this one, and I'm going to touch up the paint on it, much as I hate to do it that way. This one has a really pretty, but I'm afraid that balance weight's going to come apart. And I don't want to take a chance on that happening. And that screw is just disintegrating. So we're going to take this one apart. Chris, are you holding your breath? Wow, that's really gross inside. Okay. There's our, wow, it's got a lot of, it's well lubricated, but it's really dirty inside. All right. Neither of these two have this plastic cap being perfect on them. They're both broken. This one has more of the plastic cap than this one, so we're going to put what's left of it onto this one. All right, I've taken both rotors apart, and I've taken one of the bail assemblies apart, and I've scrubbed up the best of the rotors. Now, the one thing that I can't do anything about is this plastic piece right here. And it's broken on both reels. So there's nothing I can do about that. Be perfectly honest, doesn't do a whole lot for the reel. It could be left out altogether. And I think that may end up being what I'm doing. But in the meantime, I'm ready to put this bail back together. So I've reattached the bail, and I did take this apart and scrub it as best it could be scrubbed. And what I did is I took this nut off, and there's a washer under it, and then I took this screw out right here. When that screw comes out, there's a sleeve inside here, so I took the sleeve off. So took all that apart, cleaned it as best I could. It's still not the cleanest in the world. And I believe that roller is supposed to roll in there, but it doesn't. Or if it does, I can't see it rolling. I haven't put enough pressure on it to make it roll. But I'm going to go ahead and oil it on both sides. Oil the little sleeve. I don't know that that's going to help any. All right, but now this is the good rotor of the two. This is the one that does not have a cracked balance weight. And we have a spring. It's going to go in. And if you look inside, let's see if there is a hole. Okay, this one does not have a hole. What it has is a side slot right here. And that side slot is where that spring goes right there. Okay, then we're going to set this over and line it up. That tag end right there is going to go into that hole. So that's the next step, is to get that tag end into that hole, which is usually much easier said than I went right in. Okay. Now, while holding that spring inside that hole and inside that slot, we're going to lift this up and rotate it around to there. Now we should be able to put our screw in. And I do not, this is the cleanest of my two screws, and I do not want to use this one. The threads are damaged on it, and I like to never guide it out. So I'm going to clean this one up real quick, and this is going to be the one that we're going to put in there. Just to give you an idea how much dirt came out of that. There's all kinds of stuff, and there's grass, everything, all inside that screw head. So that probably has something to do with why the screw was performing sluggishly. Also, make sure that you leave no dirt up inside where the spring rides. Like so. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and put this screw in. And this is one of those curved slotted screws that I made a special screwdriver for. Right there. I made my own, if you look at it, so that it fits that curve in that slot. Oh, this is going to work much better. Okay, but now notice that we're not lining up right here. If I take this and I try to force it up there and put the screw in it, it's not going to function as well. What we have to do is actually reshape the bail slightly so that it stays there when we do it. Okay? It needs to stay right where it's at. It's still out just a little bit. That probably is not going to, well, that's a really stiff bail. So we're going to need to fix that as well. Okay, so let's tighten it up here. There we go. And then realign it so that it fits almost perfectly. And now I could put this plastic sleeve back on here like this, but I want to show you that I don't really think it's necessary. I think that you can just put the screw on and leave it at that, like so. Okay? All right, that's set. Let's go ahead at this point, since we've got all this open and easy to get easy access, let's go ahead and put this trip assembly back in. We're going to set it in. It drops into this slot right here. See where the trip end falls into the slot. Set that down. And now we've got this long, large-headed screw with a shoulder on it. That's the one that's going to hold it in. But I think we have discovered one of the weak points. Everybody talks about this reel like it's a dinosaur and will live forever, but it's not. It does have a weak point. The weak point being this plastic piece over here. The chrome seems to have been going on this. If you look at the axle shafts on these, you will see some discoloration from dissimilar metal corrosion. So there are aspects of this that fail. This bronze trip lever right here, the fact that they made it out of bronze instead of steel, you know, that's another failure point. So it's not a perfect reel, but some people really like them well enough to pay really good money. I paid really good money for this one just because it had the counter on it. That's the only reason I really wanted this reel, is because it had that counter. There we go. It's got the spring down on there. And now, when this flips over and this trips, I hate to get my thumb in there. Let me use something else to trip it with. There it goes. Okay. So we are in business there. We're ready to put this rotor assembly back on. And this is, remember, this is the piece that I told you had to be lined up. So we're going to line up the squares, the flat sides on this. We're going to line those up horizontal to the square peg so that those flats will go across like this. We're going to sit this back on like so. Then we're going to line this up, put it in, and I got to get that to sit over that square like so. Once we've done that, we're going to put on our big old lock washer and our big old nut. See, it's got a rounded side and a flat side. We're going to put the flat side down against the lock washer, leave the rounded side to the top. Tighten that down. There we go. Sweet. All right, let's see if it trips. There we go. Bell trips as advertised. We've already greased this axle, so let's go ahead and slide the axle shaft in. Bring it down. We're going to line up the hole. That hole is going to line up with this hole right here on our crosswind block. Don't worry about getting the crosswind block over top of this pin here yet. Let's go ahead and get it lined up and get the hole lined up. Okay. There we go. Didn't want to go all the way through to the back side. Now I'm going to use this pick to align the hole. Once I've done that, I should be able to put the screw in. And tighten it down. Okay, with that tight, now lift it up and slide the axle shaft up until you get it onto the pin. And now you're set. And what's going to hold that in place is putting your side piece back on. Okay, so we're going to slip the side piece back on, like so. And you only need one screw in it for now. All right, now what we didn't do was take this assembly apart. And I'm going to take this apart real quick. I did it on the other one, but I haven't done it on this one. So let me go ahead and drive the pin out of here, pull this off real quick, and do a quick clean so we can put this one back together. All right, if you look at this pin out of the other one, you will see that it's a roll pin. This pin in this one is a solid pin that someone has driven in, and I don't think I'm ever going to get that one out. So we're going to leave it in there. We're going to clean this up just like it sits, because there's no real need to take it out, except to show you guys how it comes out. And I'm afraid I'm going to damage it by driving it out, because somebody has put a serious pin in there. They didn't want a roll pin to ever come out. So we're going to scrub this up. All right, yeah, if I was going to try to take that out, I would probably take a Dremel tool and flatten it out so that it's not rounded on top, and then try to drive it through. But no, there's no need for me to take that out, so I'm going to leave it right where it's at. Okay, we're going to put some oil in the anti-reverse handle, and then cycle it around, get that oil down inside there. Okay, on the back side, I'm going to put some grease in these little holes back here that the anti-reverse rides in. Just to keep it from being able to wear on them. Then we're going to grease the teeth of the main gear. All right. With that being the case, we're ready to set this back inside. Right here. And we're going to line up the holes. Those lined up. We're going to put the screws back in. And it appears that one of the screws that I took out is much longer. I think it's somebody has replaced it. Yeah, that is not the right screw for in there. Okay, but we do have plenty from our parts reel. So let's go ahead, rotate this around a little bit, get it out of the way. And I did what I tell you always not to do, and that was I tightened down the one screw before it was all lined up. Flip the anti-reverse the opposite direction. This is reversible. I can take this handle off and put it on this side, and that's what that was set up for. Okay, here we go. Wow, what a beast. All right, let's see what we have here. It looks to have a bearing inside here for a drag. Okay, very tight little spring, but I did manage to get behind it. I'm going to lift it out. All right. There is a washer. And that's it. One locking washer that allows us to lock to the axle shaft. That's all there is. So we will drop it back in. We're going to oil it. We're going to pop this snap ring back in, like so. Okay. Slip it on. There we go. And the last thing to do is tighten this down. That's a very tight drag. All right. There we have it. The D.A.M Quick 270 with line counter. Let's see if the line counter works. I've got it set at 0. somehow the video of the line counter off check didn't get included. So here I am back to do it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and set this to 0. And there you go. That's how it works. And but of course, you go to cast it, the line goes out. There's no recording of that line going out. The only thing it will record is how much you wound in. So there you have it. The anti-reverse works. Everything on this reel seems to be perfectly functional. And I hope you like it. If you did like it, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hey, by all means, hit the dislike button. And if you know anybody who has one of these who would like to see it done, tell them about us. And by the way, we hit 450 today. I will say congratulations out there to Second Chance Tackle with going over 20,000 subscribers today. That's awesome. Good job, Dennis. Appreciate it. Without Dennis, there would be no Young Martin's Reels. So thanks a lot.